talk to you a little bit today about hungry ghosts, what they are, how you become one, and how you help them out. So hungry ghosts, you know, in the Western culture when we talk about ghosts, we think about a soul that has not been able to move on to one place or another, right? However, in the East, and specifically in Buddhism, a ghost is as alive as you or me. It's a rebirth, another plane of existence. They just happen to live in a different realm than us, but they feel pain and they suffer just as much, if not more, than the rest of us do. One becomes a hungry ghost by living your life full of craving and greed. And that craving and greed translates to your rebirth. When you can't get enough, when everything that you have is not enough for you now and you need more and more and more and more, think about it. You probably know people like this, right? Yeah. Yeah, we all do, I think. So when you pass on, that craving and that addiction is a stain. It's a defilement. And that translates into your rebirth. And so you're reborn as someone who needs more and more and can never get enough. When you look at the mythology, a hungry ghost is represented as a being with a large cavernous stomach. Very, very large. A long, skinny neck. And this very, very tiny little mouth. They can never, ever, ever get enough to eat. And if they eat something on their own, it will turn into something disgusting like bile or excrement or even fire, adding to their torture. So how do we help these hungry ghosts? How do we help them up? We have to feed them. They can't eat if somebody doesn't offer them food. Okay? So what we do is, in order to help them to create merit, to offer the merit to them to help with their rebirth, because unlike people, they can't create merit on their own, we offer them food. We offer them other things as well, but food is the most important thing because they just cannot get it on their own. Traditionally, in some countries, they'll actually lay out entire banquets so that rather than just one hungry ghost they're feeding an entire banquet, a feast full of hungry ghosts. And what we're going to do today is the same thing. We're going to feed all the hungry ghosts that we can find, and we're going to call them to us. And we're going to do that by making some noise. So I think that some of you brought some pots and pans and some things to bang on. So what you might want to do is pick up those pots and pans and stand up. And we're going to call the hungry ghosts to come and eat. And they might not be in front of you. They might be hiding in the corners. They might be up in the ceiling. They might be behind the doors. So walk around and bang your pots and pans. But for now, we've invited them to join us. We're going to give them time to come in and get settled. And Sensei Morris is going to talk to us a bit about what that means and what it is that we're going to be doing later on.
Well, now for something completely different. That was really very impressive. I like that. This is a short discourse called "Hungry Shades Outside the Walls." Outside the walls they stand, at crossroads and doorposts they stand, returning to their old homes. But when a meal with plentiful food and drink is served, no one remembers them. Such is the karma of these beings. Thus, those who feel sympathy for their dead relatives give timely donations of food and drink. divine, wholesome nutriment, thinking, may this be for our relatives, may our relatives be happy. And those who have gathered here, the assembled shades of those loved ones, return their blessing for the plentiful food and drink, saying, may our relatives who have honored us with this gift live long. May our benefactors be rewarded. For in the realm of the hungry spirits there is no farming, no herding of cattle, nothing to buy or trade. They live on what is given them, these hungry spirits whose time here on this earth is done. As water raining on a hill flows down into the valley, even so does what is given here benefit the dead. As rivers full of water fill the ocean full, even so does what is given here benefit the dead. He gave to me, she acted on my behalf. They were my relatives, companions, friends. Offerings should be given to the dead when one reflects on such past favors. For no weeping, no sorrowing, nor lamentation benefits the dead. But when this offering is given, it works for their long-term benefit, and they profit immediately. In this way, the proper duty to relatives has been shown, and great honor has been done to the departed. The merit acquired by this is not small. So if you would join me in a guided meditation. So if you would like to close your eyes or otherwise look into your hearts and take just a few nice deep breaths, and just relax and settle into the present moment. And as you're sitting here in this place at this time, reflect for a moment on the people who've gone before you and who make it possible for you to be here today. And begin with your parents, calling them to mind, wishing them well, whether they're living or departed. And begin thinking about your ancestors, your grandparents, your great-grandparents. What kind of sacrifices did they have to make in order for you to be here now? And wish them well. And go back a few generations. See how far back you're aware of. You may not know more than a few generations back, but you know that stretching back thousands of years, people and other beings have existed in order to make it possible for you to be here today in this church, breathing. And just take a moment to sit in silence and to be grateful. So, happy Halloween, as Sensei Michelle said. I guess for most Americans these days, Halloween is mostly a chance to put on a costume and overindulge in candy or otherwise misbehave. But, you know, Halloween is also part of the Christian Triduum of All Hallowtide. It also includes All Saints' Day and All Souls' Day. And so it's a time for remembering the dead, including saints, martyrs, and the faithful. And Day of the Dead in Mexican culture falls kind of along the same lines at the same time and expands to gatherings to pray for and remember friends and family members who have passed away, help support their spiritual journey. So Buddhists have similar observances, and they vary a little bit from one country and one tradition to another, but they all involve setting aside a period of time to spend honoring those who have passed. So like in Thailand, this observance is called Sart. In most Mahayana Buddhist traditions, it's referred to as ulambana, which is a Sanskrit word that refers to freeing someone from suffering. And the Japanese name is Oban, which is basically the Japanese pronunciation of Ulumbana. And in Vietnam, it's Vuan, which is kind of the same thing, a transliteration of that. So the practice is fairly universal in Buddhist cultures, but happens at slightly different times, partly because different Buddhist countries use different calendars. And then also, as I'll discuss a little bit more later, some cultures kind of schedule this to coincide with some previously existing events that weren't specifically Buddhist. So, for example, in Southeast Asia, the events are kind of like a harvest celebration also. So Japan uses the Gregorian calendar, and Oban, which is probably in the West the most well-known version of these, happens around the middle of July. Most of the other Mahayana Buddhist countries celebrate it during the 7th lunar month. And so this year is around mid-August to mid-September was the 7th month. With Bright Dawn, the head of Bright Dawn has actually discussed the idea with us of trying to find ways to combine and sort of Americanize some Buddhist holidays. So we talked about celebrating Oban at Halloween. And in Volusia Buddhist Fellowship meetings, we generally have an observance on the last day of October. So we'll be doing that. We'll be kind of repeating a lot of this tonight. At any rate, regardless of what day it falls on or what you call it, this is an opportunity really to practice gratitude toward our parents and departed ancestors. And in fact, the name of the holiday is taken from the title of a sutra, the Ulumbana Sutra, in which the Buddha tells us how we can repay our parents and other ancestors for the care that we receive from them. So I'm not going to try to read the entire discourse, but I'll sum it up a little bit. The Buddha was staying at a monastery, and Moggallana was also at the monastery at the same time. This was during the Rains retreat. Moggallana was a key disciple. In fact, if you go to a lot of Buddhist temples, you'll see the big statues, and there's the Buddha, and then there are kind of key people to his right and left, and that's Moggallana and his friend Sariputta. And so they were sort of, they weren't really second command, wasn't really a command at that point, but they were key followers and almost acted as his surrogates, to use a contemporary idea sometimes. Well, Moggallana was very advanced, and he had just attained what's called the 6 penetrations. So the divine eye and the divine ear, which see and hear what others can't, and the ability to read minds, the ability to see previous lives, the ability to see or go anywhere at all, and the ability to see the root of all suffering. So he wanted to use these powers to visit his father and mother and to really express his gratitude toward them. And so as he started to do this, he realized his mother, who had passed away, had been reborn a hungry ghost. And as he saw her in this state, he realized that she was starving. She was practically skin and bones because she had nothing to eat. And so he filled a bowl with food to take to her. But as soon as she tried to eat it, it turned into glowing, burning charcoals. So Moggallana was heartsick over this. And he went to talk to the Buddha. And the Buddha explained that his mother had done some really bad things in her life and in some previous existences too. She had prevented monks from being fed, had actually stolen food that was intended for monks and that sort of thing. And so what she had done was so bad that Moggallana on his own wouldn't be able to help her. And in fact, the Buddha said, even if you called on a bunch of Brahmins and other deities, they can't help you either. But if you could call on the spiritual power of the entire Sangha, in other words, all Buddhists, for help, then you'll be able to free your mother from the realm of the hungry ghost. So he said to Moggallana, look, Pavarana Day is coming up. And when the Buddha was alive, during the rainy season, monks would all go and stay with him or find another monastery, and they would stay during the rains and be instructed, and then at the end of the rains, they would leave the monasteries and go spread the Buddha's teachings. So Pavarana Day is kind of the end of the rains retreat. And so they would, at the end of that time, they'd have special services, and people in the surrounding communities would come in and make offerings to them and all of that. So that they would have all of these advanced monks in one place practicing at the same time. So on the 15th day of the 7th month, when all of these monks would be practicing, Moggallana should make an offering. And the Buddha said, on behalf of 7 generations of ancestors, your current parents, and those in distress, you should gather food of 100 flavors and 5 kinds of fruit, basins for washing and rinsing, incense, oil lamps and candles, and mattresses and bedding. Take the sweetest, prettiest things in the world and place them in a bowl and offer it to the assembled monks, those of great virtue of the 10 directions. And then he went on to talk about the process of doing this and explained that all these ancestors would then be able to move around, and they'd be able to dress themselves and eat just as if they were humans, freed from life as ghosts. So Moggallana did this. He made these offerings, got other people to make offerings, and then the Buddha had the Sangha recite blessings for his family. And as they recited these blessings, Moggallana saw that his mother was released from many eons of suffering as a human ghost. Well, he was overjoyed by this, and so he went to the Buddha and he said, look, if other Buddhist followers practice filial devotion in this way, can they also help their ancestors be released from these bad realms? Well, the Buddha really liked that question, and he said yes. Said if Buddhist monks and lay followers will make offerings like this at this time of year on behalf of their ancestors, then their parents, if living, will live long and happy lives. And their departed ancestors will transcend any existence as hungry ghosts and be reborn as deities. And then he said, those disciples of the Buddha who practice filial devotion must in every moment of consciousness maintain the thought of their parents and ancestors. And I think that's really the key to this practice. It sounds like a big commitment to keep your parents and ancestors always in mind. But if you think about what you receive from them, it's really quite important to be grateful to our ancestors because we owe them quite a debt. The Pali word for gratitude is kata nuta, which means knowing what has been done. So it's really recognizing what our parents have done on our behalf. They're not only responsible for our lives, but it's pretty amazing what they did, what kind of sacrifices they made for us, which Moggallana saw. You know, the average infant goes through 2,700 diapers in his first year of life. I looked that up. So someone, most likely your mother, changed more than 2,000 of your dirty diapers during the first year of your life alone. Now think about changing 2,000 dirty diapers. That's pretty impressive. And then think, how many meals did your parents provide for you before you started buying your own food? I calculated it for me, and it was probably 20,000 or so. So if a friend offered to take you to lunch 20,000 times, that would be a pretty good friend, right? So the Buddha considered gratitude to those who cared for us in this way so important that he literally felt that someone who was unthankful had no integrity. So in one sutra he talked about the importance of gratitude, especially to our parents, and he said there are 2 people who are not easy to repay, your mother and your father. Even if you were to carry your mother on one shoulder and your father on the other for 100 years, you would not repay them. Even if you could establish them in absolute sovereignty over the great earth, you would not repay your parents. But being grateful to your ancestors and being grateful for those who helped you be where you are now really extends a lot beyond that. I mean, for me to be talking to you today about Buddhism, my ancestors several generations ago had to leave places like England and Ireland and travel to a strange country and work very hard to establish their lives here. And I've had teachers who supported me and many others who supported me so that I could be at this point. And no doubt your ancestors and others made similar efforts and sacrifices for you, so you could be here today in this nice safe place with a community where you're welcomed and listen to the Buddha's teachings. So during Obon services, Buddhists don't just honor their ancestors. They offer their teachers and other significant people because they're important too. If you look closely at your life, you realize there's very little that we can accomplish without help from others. So different Buddhist traditions celebrate this in slightly different ways. I mentioned the Thai version of this, which is called Sart. It's kind of intermingled with autumn celebrations and came down with Buddhist harvest festivals and stuff like that from the north. So this time of year, Thai people will cook a special kind of sweet rice called Sart rice, and they'll give that to monks during alms rounds. And then along with their religious observances, there's festivals and dancing and that kind of thing. If you go to the Thai temple on Sart Day, people are making offerings. They have an alms round for the monks, and then some will go for refuge, take the precepts, and other people will do different things to make merit, and then dedicate the merit for their ancestors. So whatever you do here today, making offerings to your church and so on, you can dedicate that to your ancestors. The thing is, when you live, you create karma. Karma brought us into this particular form, and when that karma has been exhausted, then that's when we pass away. But while we're living this life, we're creating more karma. So if the karma we create now leads to being a ghost, you can't do any more good actions. You can't do good things if you're a ghost. Because you're no longer human, you can't move toward enlightenment. So you're kind of stuck, but others can do things on your behalf. So it's pretty common practice universally for Buddhists to make offerings to temples. People will buy livestock and set it free, make offerings to charity, things like that, and then dedicate those actions to their ancestors who can benefit from them and sort of move up on the spiritual planes as a result. So in Japan, Obon includes some celebrations with dancing called Bon Odori. And when Moggallana had recalled all the sacrifices that his mother had made for him, he was grief-stricken when he saw how she was suffering. But when he realized he had freed her from pain, he was so happy that he danced with joy. So the Bon Odori dances were really inspired by Moggallana's dancing for joy at his mother's liberation. At Tomoka Correctional Institution, we do a Zen-style Obon service once a year. And it's one of the most meaningful services that we do there. We don't dance, but during the service we do a lot of chanting. We recall the names of bodhisattvas and mahasattvas and our teachers and so on. And then each of the inmates gets a piece of joss paper, which is coarse paper that burns very quickly and cleanly. It has a piece of gold actually imprinted on it, like a gold leaf. And they write the names of their deceased parents, ancestors, teachers, close friends who died on the paper, and then one by one they come up front and they can read the names of these people and then burn this. And then at the end of this service we take it outside and scatter it on the grounds. So, you know, in prison, a lot of these guys have had no contact with loved ones for a long time. They weren't able to go to their loved ones' funerals. And it's really hard to put into words how much this means to them, to have this opportunity to kind of connect spiritually with these people who benefited them, gave them life, or gave them friendship. So for so many of them, Obon is really the only chance they have to feel closeness to people like this, from whom they've otherwise been completely separated. The idea of the joss paper and the gold, by the way, is that when you burn it, gold becomes available for your loved ones to use. So in China, there's a whole month dedicated to this, to honor it, called Ghost Month. And during that month, people will make offerings and burn joss paper money and paper versions of clothing and things like that. Sensei Michelle and I were talking about this on the way up here, and I said, when I die, find a joss paper Ferrari. So hopefully she will do that, because I can't afford one in life. But in Japanese and China, so people might also light paper lanterns and float them on the water, which is really beautiful, but this helps the spirits kind of find their way to the Pure Land and things like that. Vietnamese observance of this called Vu Lan, and it's really something kind of interesting happened with that. It's become entwined with the idea of Mother's Day. And it happened because of an essay that Thich Nhat Hanh wrote more than 50 years ago. He had been visiting Japan, and in Japan they've adopted a lot of Western customs and so on. And so they celebrate Mother's Day there pretty much the way we do. But here's what he wrote. He said, one day I was visiting the Ginza district in Tokyo with another monk. We were outside a bookstore near several Japanese students who were friends of his. And one of these students discreetly asked him a question and then took a white carnation from her bag and pinned it on my robe. The other monk later told me that today was what is called Mother's Day. In Japan, if your mother's still alive, you wear a red flower on your pocket or lapel, proud that you still have your mother. If she's no longer alive, you wear a white flower. Well, he liked that custom. And so he proposed that Vietnamese people adopt it, and they did. So now during Vu Lan at places like White Sands Buddhist Center, the service ends with us passing out white or red roses to everyone, according to whether their mothers are living or died. Thich Nhat Hanh continued in his essay to explain why he thought it was important to do this kind of thing. He said, Father's work is enormous, as huge as a mountain. But our mother is the teacher who first teaches us about love, the most important subject in life. Without my mother, I could never have known how to love. Thanks to her, I can love my neighbors. Thanks to her, I can love all living beings. When the word mother is uttered, already we feel our hearts overflowing with love. And from love, the distance to belief and action is very short. So today, we've given you an opportunity to repay your ancestors by doing some good on their behalf, dedicating it to them. And we're going to end by giving you a chance to actually feed any of them who have been reborn as hungry spirits. The best way to repay a kindness is to reflect it in your own good actions. The Buddha said one way to express your gratitude to your parents would be to help them develop conviction, virtue, generosity, and discernment. We can't give those characteristics to someone else, but what we can do is develop the qualities ourselves. So to repay our parents, we can become people of integrity. We can learn the teachings, we can practice what we learn so that we can spread the good influence of these lessons to others. You learn from being grateful for your mother's love and compassion to be harmless in your dealings and to live compassionate, charitable lives. And then you allow your mother's nurturing to spread beyond your relationship with her in larger and larger circles that ripple through the world. And that way you transform the goodness that you receive from your ancestors into goodness for all beings. And the sacrifices you made on your behalf benefit countless beings. So we're going to give this food to hungry ghosts now. Now you'll notice when we finish this service that the food will still be there. The ghosts don't eat the form of the food because they're not the same form as we are. So in order for this to really benefit, you can't just take the food home and eat it. You have to share it. So someone brought in a cake, which we'll share to share with the community, and the rest of this is going to go to charity, I understand. So that's part of the process too, giving the food away after we give it away spiritually, we give it away physically. So we're going to do this feeding the hungry spirits. I will sort of chant my line, and then you can just read your section together. Ready? Supplication for the raising of the Bodhi mind, vow to feed the hungry spirits.
Raising the Bodhi mind, supreme meal is offered to all hungry spirits throughout space and time, filling the smallest particle to largest space. All you hungry spirits in 10 directions, please gather here, sharing your distress. I offer you this food, hoping it will resolve your thirst and hunger.
Prayer for food sharing.
I pray all who receive this offering will return its merits to all Buddhists and to all creations throughout space and time. In this way, they will be thoroughly satisfied.
Prayer for vows.
I further beseech you to sustain me day and night, and give me courage to fulfill my vows.
Prayer for transferring the merit of this practice.
In offering this meal, I pray to give its merits equally to all creations in the Dharma worlds. Please transfer the merits of this offering to the Dharma world of reality, to unsurpassable enlightenment, and to all those existence.
With all our love, with all our spirits, and with all our might, inviting misery and suffering no longer, we vow to accomplish the way. May all creations in the Dharma world swiftly accomplish the Buddha way together.